Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. Profound and subtle dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please generate unsurpassed bodhicitta. Today, we will begin our teachings on an overview of the secret commentary, Thorough Dispelling of Darkness, throughout the 10 directions, entitled Essence of Clear Light. This commentary, The Essence of Clear Light, was composed by Mipham Rinpoche. We have already completed the general description of the 3 tantras. 2 years ago, we covered the 3 tantras of ground, path, and result. Last year, we finished the first of the 11 topics of the tantra, the section on the view. To all the practitioners gathered here today and those joining us via live stream, I have just been looking at the total number of participants. Basically, everyone is listening very attentively. Please try your best. For those of you staying here at Larungar, you face fewer obstacles and have more favorable conditions for hearing the Dharma. So as long as you are at the academy, you can attend the teachings every day without interruption. However, people living in cities have many different personal circumstances. A while ago, some people lost sleep for a long time trying to keep up with the Guhya Garbha Tantra. In the end, they really had no choice but to give up on the classes. Later, I said they could catch up the next day. Then the numbers increased again. It is true that city dwellers are preoccupied with family, work, and so many other things. This really makes us feel deeply how difficult it is to obtain a human birth and have the chance to hear the Dharma. This year, I will do everything possible to continue teaching the Guhya Garbha Tantra. We have already covered a portion of it over the past 2 years. I am not sure how much we can cover this year, but we will go as far as we can. If we cannot finish this year, we will continue next year and the year after that. As long as I'm alive, I will keep teaching. Our numbers seem to grow every year, which is probably a very good thing. I believe that as long as conditions are met, the more people hearing secret mantra, the better. Omniscient Longchenpa also explained this in the Lama Yangtik and the Khandro Yangtik. I think everyone here has been carefully checked to make sure you're qualified for these teachings. Therefore, I trust the Dharma protectors will grant their permission. To the coordinators and volunteers in various regions, please do not be very attentive at the beginning and then become lax later on. Please don't let that happen. Everyone who is authorized to listen this time should do so from beginning to end. For those who cannot attend, we just have to let it be for now. It can't be helped. I have met people here who kept requesting to join, but since certain conditions were not met, we have to postpone it until next year. Or in the Bodhidharma Association, there is a dedicated series of secret mantra courses. In the future, we will provide these materials according to the curriculum. Today, we will focus on Samadhi, which is the second topic of the Tantra. Previously, we explained the view through the lens of the 10 perfections. We have already completed the section on the perfection of wisdom. For those who missed the previous lessons, it would be best to catch up. However, I would like the Education Department and the Propagation Department to take this into consideration. We need to find a way for new students to study the earlier material. I am concerned that distributing the audio and video files directly might lead to them spreading too widely, which isn't good for anyone. Maybe we can arrange a fixed time for those here and online to catch up on the previous lessons. That might be helpful. I think there were 20-some lessons, though I'm not entirely sure. If you cover 2 lessons a day, you could finish them over the October National Day break while I have a gap in my schedule. Anyway, think about what might be best. If you can, please work out a plan and let me see it. I've been thinking the earlier section on the view is vital. If you haven't heard that part, it will be difficult to understand what follows. To understand the Vajrayana, you must first master the view. You need to know why things are primordially pure and why everything is the self-appearance of the Tathagata Garbha. I have already introduced these topics in detail, strictly following the instructions of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche and our lineage gurus. By listening to those lessons, many people will gain a fresh understanding of the view and practice of the Vajrayana. In today's society, there are many people practicing secret mantra. However, most are just chasing empowerments and chanting mantras. Beyond that, they have no deep understanding. If a crisis like the Cultural Revolution happened again, many would slander the secret mantra. This is because they haven't developed a firm conviction in the view, meditation, action, and fruition of the secret mantra. They don't even understand the basic concepts like why we visualize the deity or why there are so many mantras and mudras. They also don't understand the unique samadhis of the secret mantra. To be honest, from what I've seen, some people have been studying the secret mantra for 10 or 20 years, but they spend their whole lives without ever figuring out the view, meditation, action, and fruition before they pass away. There are so many people like that. Many of you here have a very strong yearning for these secret teachings. I am also doing everything I can to make this happen. After all, our lives are limited. We are all just borrowing these contaminated physical bodies. Life is so short. None of you can know when these few decades will come to an end. None of you can be certain, and neither can I. I have to take medicine and get injections every day. The other day at the office complex, I was so short on time that I asked the nuns to give me my injection. One of them said, "We are afraid to do it." I said, "Why be afraid? Aren't you doctors? Doctors should have fewer discursive thoughts." They were asking who should do it. They acted as if they were going to chop my head off. No one dared to start. So you see, having so many illnesses is just another expression of impermanence. Everyone should pray to the Dharma protectors to help us complete these tantric teachings. I used to think that if I could just finish hearing the secret mantra from my guru, I wouldn't regret dying right after. My time in this world would be worth it, because I've planted a sublime seed in my alaya vijnana. It will definitely ripen sooner or later. It is completely different from hearing any other type of Dharma. Even if I haven't achieved realization, just hearing the secret mantra, seeing the text, or making offerings to it brings liberation through hearing, seeing, and wearing. And this way, our lives become truly meaningful. This is my sincere belief, and it comes from the heart. Today, we move on to the second topic of the Tantras, Samadhi. This is what we often refer to as meditative concentration or Zen. But there is meditation in the Sutrayana and meditation in the Vajrayana. Actually, whether people are Buddhists or not, many now see Zen as an industry. They view it as a culture, a practice, or just a way to train the mind. Universities abroad in particular use Zen methods in their teachings. Many people today, including some university professors, frequently reference Zen culture nowadays. However, the Vajrayana and Sutrayana have different instructions on true meditation. Tibetan Buddhism in particular has its own unique instructions. At this year's World Youth Buddhist Symposium, several professors said, if we have to discuss Tibetan meditation, it might be difficult for us. We need the Dharma teachers from Larungar to explain it. Later, those Dharma teachers asked me about it. I told them that the Guhyagarbha Tantra contains uncommon meditative practices unique to the secret mantra. Of course, many aspects are shared with the Sutrayana, as taught in finding rest in the nature of the mind and the way of the Bodhisattva. So today we all know it is necessary to understand the meditation unique to the secret mantra. Samadhi has 4 parts: the nature, distinctions, manner of accomplishment, and purpose. First, let's discuss the nature of Samadhi. Whoever tames the mind that resembles an intoxicated elephant will achieve the most astonishing great siddhi. By remaining in evenness and reliance upon mantra and mudra, this is what the verses of the Guhyagarbha Tantra state. Our mind is like a monkey or a wild, intoxicated elephant. That is quite terrifying. Once an elephant goes mad, it can destroy entire cities and buildings. It ruins everything in its path. Similarly, our own minds are very difficult to control. The only way to subdue the mind is through meditation and samadhi. This is how we can tame it. There are many methods to practice samadhi, including specific mantras and mudras, which are discussed in the later sections of the Tantra. Regarding mudras, these can refer to the hand gestures we usually make, but there are also other specific mudras for samadhi. By practicing this way, we can truly achieve an extraordinary state of meditation. Nowadays, many people are constantly upset and cannot control their minds. They experience a great deal of suffering. The best remedy for this is to practice samadhi. This is very important. Chanting mantras is also vital, but most fundamentally, we must recognize the nature of the mind. Otherwise, the mind can be truly terrifying. This is especially true for those in the Han region. I posted a Weibo message today. I feel I've identified a very significant issue. Why? I see so much tension in family relationships in the Han region. Someone might say one thing and the other person can't take it and immediately attempts suicide. A single sentence leads to a divorce. They just can't stand even a single word from others. Why is that? I've noticed that most of it comes from TV, movies, and other media. Children watch how people argue and behave on TV from a young age. Their outlook on life is largely formed by what they see on screen. They pick up lines like, "I'm breaking down," "I've been destroyed," or "I'm totally defeated." You don't really see this kind of mindset in the daily life of the Tibetan region. No one says, "That person said something and now I'm completely crushed." Why are you crushed? Because what they said was a huge blow to me. I can never forgive them. It's impossible. This has become a major issue in many people's lives today. To be honest, many people are just so incredibly fragile. It's not just 1 or 2 people, it is a very widespread problem. Even among our volunteers, Some people just lose their temper over a small argument, and the second they hear something they don't like, they're like, that's it, I'm leaving. A while ago, one of our very dedicated volunteers left immediately after a minor argument with another person. I talked to him yesterday and said, just come back to your work. It's okay. You were doing so well, don't be like this. Some volunteers who have been by my side for many years can be this way. I once heard about an attendant who served a guru for 13 years. One day, after the guru said something to him, he thought, I've been the guru's attendant for 13 years. But after what he said to me today, it feels like all hope is gone. Since he doesn't trust me anymore, why should I stay? And then he left. So whether it's in relationships or daily life, the state of our mind is often related to the education we've had. When you have the chance, look this up. Sakya Pandita also mentioned this in the Treasury of Elegant Sayings. Wise people are hard to separate, but if they do, they are easily reconciled. Foolish people are easily separated, but once apart, reconciliation is difficult. We can see this clearly in many people today. Wise people do not take it to heart, when someone says something about them. Whether you're working together, volunteering, or just living in the same house, it's only natural to have different opinions. However, these differences should not make someone feel defeated. Words should not cause such deep harm. Some proverbs say that wounds from words are hard to heal, but that's only true for really foolish people. If you have even a little wisdom, even if someone says you're ugly or I don't trust you, how could such a simple sentence knock you down? As I mentioned, many people today are like this. I tried hard to find Tibetan equivalents for feeling crushed or collapsing, but you just can't find them in Tibetan. They aren't part of traditional life in the Tibetan region. But now many young Tibetans watch movies and TV. They're starting to copy these reactions. They think, after what was said to me, I have no hope left. If that's how he feels, then, well, you know how it goes. I'll stop there or I'll be here all day telling stories. So, regarding the methods for subduing our minds, meditation is great, but recognizing the nature of the mind is even better. We must also be aware of how modern education and habits can mislead us. I hope everyone here, especially practitioners, can develop a more stable and resilient mindset. Don't let every little thing knock you off balance and make you fall apart. We often see this happen in our practice. To be honest, for many people, this is something you really need to address in your outlook on life. I might speak more on this in the future because it's a problem that affects so many families. The other day, I reposted a message on Weibo. Those with no money want to get married, those with money want to get divorced. There are many such worldly sayings, but they really do capture how people are living today. Life today is often driven by a completely inverted set of values, and because of these inverted ideas, people are suffering immensely. They start a family and then immediately want to break it apart. When we visited some schools recently, we found that many young people in cities are already divorced. Children are left without parents to care for them or are raised in single-parent homes. These social problems are getting more and more serious. On the surface, the skyscrapers are rising higher and higher. But in reality, personal and family problems, as well as conflicts between nations, are becoming more and more prominent. In times like these, spiritual practice is the best solution. Learning the secret mantra is especially effective, as it directly teaches you how to cut through afflictions and realize the truth. If we can truly achieve samadhi and recognize the nature of our mind, then words, which are just like echoes in an empty valley, won't be able to hurt us at all. With even a slight realization of the mind's nature, those empty echoing words can never harm you. Even when facing severe illness or life-threatening injuries, or when you are at your last breath, a true practitioner can face it all with an incredibly powerful inner strength. I think everyone should reflect on this. It is very important. The text says, the term samadhi describes a mind that is even. It is also called sanmedi. This refers to an even mind. People often call it an ordinary mind or an even mind. An even mind means that when you encounter verbal attacks, you are fully able to endure them. Moreover, in any environment or situation, your mind remains unshakable. For anyone, this is the most supreme attainment possible, and capable of single-pointedly abiding with whatever object is focused upon. This is called samadhi. It means the mind is capable. Currently, our minds are not under our control. We don't want to get angry, but we do anyway. We don't want to suffer, but we end up in pain. This is what it means for a mind to be unruly and disobedient. If the mind is well trained, as it is for yogis and great practitioners, they can enter or leave meditation whenever they choose. Their mind always follows their intent, whether they want to read or to practice. But many people are different. They want to read but cannot focus. They want to listen to the teachings, and though their bodies are present in the hall, their minds have already drifted away. No matter how hard their mindfulness tries to keep up, it can't catch the wandering mind. Their thoughts have already returned to their home cities. This is what it means to lack focus. This also means a mind that consistently abides and is compatible with its object. It means abiding in the true reality or a compatible object. Why is it called meditation? In truth, meditation is about finding the mind's original nature. It is when the mind truly aligns with the reality it dwells upon. It's not about forcing the mind to dwell on something it is not. For instance, if something isn't empty by nature, you shouldn't force your mind to dwell on it as emptiness. If it is not luminous, you shouldn't force your mind to dwell on it as luminosity. As stated in the Beacon of Certainty, that would be illogical. If a vase is inherently impure, trying to visualize it as pure is just unrealistic. That is just not practical. So once our view is established, why do we visualize the deity? In reality, our mind is non-dual with the deity in the way it appears. Why do we visualize our mind as the union of emptiness and luminosity? Because that is exactly what its nature is. It's just that our mind is currently clouded by discursive thoughts, which lead us to perceive things through the four inversions, like permanence or purity. Therefore, we should abide in the nature, devoid of disturbance from elation or lethargy. This covers the nature of samadhi. The nature of concentration is to have the mind abide in its true reality. Next, we will discuss the distinctions. Distinctions include those of the nature and those of duration. For the first, the distinctions of the nature, there are the two samadhis of the generation and completion. The terms generation stage and completion stage are crucial in the secret mantra. I hope our Dharma teachers and those of you with deep insight will master them and be able to teach them in the future. This includes those in the presentation classes. Starting tomorrow, our daily presentation session will continue. The lead Dharma teachers for these presentations should come here. Space is limited, so you don't all need to sit together in one area. Once I finish the lecture, I will pick someone to present the day's teaching. Control room, please have the wireless microphones ready. Whoever is chosen should just stand up and give your presentation right where you are. So, the main Dharma teachers should be prepared every day. I really want the Dharma teachers to build a solid foundation in the view, meditation conduct, and result of the secret mantra this time. I mentioned this yesterday at our faculty meeting. If all of us here attain a profound and unique level of realization regarding the view and meditation of the great perfection, then Larunga will truly be a unique academy. However, if we only focus on the 5 great treatises or worldly academic knowledge, then we wouldn't be much different from any other university. Other universities also offer meditation and religious studies. I truly hope that through hearing, contemplation, and meditation, you all gain certainty in the view, meditation, conduct, and result of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. I especially hope the Dharma teachers can provide extra tutoring sessions. I pray for the blessing of the Dharma protectors in this. Privately, if our Dharma teachers and instructors have already received the empowerment and completed the preliminary practices, then you should help tutor others. There is no fault in doing your best to guide them. As for the specific arrangements, each class should decide based on your own situation. Every class is different. Some focus on practice, while others focus on the 5 great treatises. If you have time, you can organize it. If not, individuals can still seek out Dharma teachers for private guidance. I remember back when I first arrived at the academy, a Khenpo was teaching the Abhidharma Kosha, and I was a tutor then. A monk used to come to me every day, and I tutored him through the entire great commentary on the Abhidharma Kosha. Later on, he returned to lay life. I used to joke that as a teacher, I wasn't very successful. That was a long time ago when I first arrived at the academy. A Khenpo was teaching the great commentary on the Abhidharma Kosha. I was the tutor. Every day that monk would come and listen, standing barefoot in the snow. I told him to come inside, but he wouldn't, so I just opened the window. He would just sweep a spot in the snow and stand there. He was so diligent. Even though he is a layman now, I heard he remains very dedicated to his practice. He is an exemplary practitioner among lay people. Some people return to lay life due to various circumstances, but they are completely different from ordinary lay people. He still keeps up with his daily meditation and chanting. Though he is no longer an ordained monk, he remains very diligent. Perhaps this is the blessing of the Abhidharma Kosha. Now let's discuss the generation stage. The generation stage is a practice of visualization in the secret mantra. We touched on this when discussing the view in the path of skillful methods and the path of liberation. The generation stage involves visualizing the deity and the mandala in a conceptual way. This type of practice is called the generation stage. The completion stage involves practicing with the winds, channels, and essences in a non-conceptual way. That is the primary focus. Of course, you may find a few practices involving winds, channels, and essences even within the generation stage. As for the completion stage, we discussed these two stages in the 9th chapter of the Great Chariot. Essentially, the completion stage is characterized by non-conceptuality. There are two types of non-conceptual practice: completion stage with effort and completion stage without effort. The with effort stage refers to practices involving the visualization of winds, channels, and essences. The without effort stage refers to the practices of Dzogchen, the great perfection. So whenever we visualize a deity or recite a liturgy and secret mantra, it always involves the generation and completion stages. These are very important. Now, the text says to practice the generation stage, there are 4 practices that purify the habits of the 4 places of birth. We have mentioned some of this previously. If possible, you should read the secret mantra section of the Great Chariot. In the 9th chapter on the generation stage, it explains how to eliminate the habitual tendencies of birth from an egg, birth from a womb, birth from heat and moisture, and miraculous birth. By visualizing the deity, we can purify all the tendencies within our mind stream that lead to rebirth in samsara. This is the power of the generation stage. Through this practice of the generation stage, one will no longer wander in samsara. Why is it that one will no longer wander in samsara? Because by practicing in accordance with the 4 types of birth, one severs their seeds and tendencies. Once these are gone, rebirth will not occur. This is a very profound teaching. Within this method of practice, there are 4 types: extensive, medium, concise, and extremely concise. The most extensive is to generate the air of the self, the air of the other, the 5 actual manifestations of awakening, and the 4 Vajra rituals. This is extensive practice. In this extensive practice, in order to eliminate the habitual tendencies of birth from an egg, first there is a visualization method known as the air of the self and the air of the other. This is also found in other commentaries on the Guhyagarbha Tantra. It involves visualizing oneself as the child of the Buddha and the Buddha as one's own child. For example, I become the Buddha's child. Because we possess the Tathagatagarbha within our mind stream, this Buddha nature will certainly reach full maturity in the future. So for now, we can say that I am currently the Buddha's disciple, son, or spiritual heir. One then visualizes themselves as the Buddha's own child. This is one of the visualization methods in the generation stage. A detailed explanation of this can be found in Mipham Rinpoche's 8 Great Sadhana teachings. Another way is to visualize the Buddhas of the 10 directions within one's own mind. Through your own visualization, you manifest the Buddhas. In this way, it's as if you are giving birth to the Buddhas. This type of visualization is called the air of the self and the air of the other. The air of the other refers to the Buddha manifesting as other beings or as the Buddha's child. These are profound, specialized visualization methods in secret mantra. They are also discussed extensively in Jigme Lingpa's writings on the generation stage. The specific details of the practice are not mentioned here. Another method is known as the 5 actual manifestations of awakening. For instance, one visualizes a lotus flower upon which lie a moon disk and a sun disk. On the sun disk, one visualizes the hand symbol and the seed syllable of the deity, which eventually transform into the complete, perfect form of the deity. This practice primarily purifies the tendencies of womb birth. Here, the sun and moon represent the white and red bindus. It is equivalent to visualizing the seed of the Buddha in the center. In a moment, the sun, moon, seed syllable, and hand symbol all instantaneously manifest as the deity. This corresponds to the process of rebirth in samsara, where consciousness enters between the parental essences and gradually forms a body. This visualization in the generation stage is very similar to that process. Visualizing the sun, moon, and seed syllable continuously is the 5 actual manifestations of awakening. This is found in more extensive generation stage practices. There is also the 4 Vajra rituals. These correspond to the body, speech, and mind and their non-duality. Or they refer to the 5 actual manifestations of awakening mentioned just now, sometimes omitting the initial sun or moon disk, yet the final perfect form of the deity must be fully present. These are the most extensive methods of the generation stage. The middling is to generate the 3 rituals. The 3 rituals are the seed syllable, the hand symbol, and finally the perfect form of the deity. The concise is to generate solely through mantra, according to Anu Yoga. This is relatively simple. For example, the syllable a or hum. Hum instantly transforms into Vajrasattva and instantly into Amitabha. It is just a single syllable. This is the Anuyoga method of visualization. Of course, this stage requires a higher level of realization and wisdom from the practitioner. Otherwise, it is quite difficult to have a seed syllable transform into the deity in an instant. This is the Anuyoga method, where syllables and mantras transform into the deity instantaneously. Our current practice involving seed syllables follows this approach. Finally, the text says, the extremely concise is meditation instantaneously perfected upon recollection according to At Yoga. Meditation instantaneously perfected upon recollection means it happens all at once without reciting a mantra or visualizing a moon disk and seed syllable. None of those are necessary. In a single instant, one's own body is transformed into Vajrasattva. Many of our current practices, including the great perfection empowerment yesterday, involve visualizing oneself instantly as Guru Rinpoche. This is an At Yoga method of visualization. According to some other liturgies, all phenomena first dissolve into emptiness. This is what we previously called the Samadhi of suchness. When all things dissolve into emptiness, one abides in that emptiness for a moment. At that point, for those beings who have not realized this emptiness, one gives rise to compassion. This is called the Samadhi of total illumination. Then one begins the subsequent visualization. This is the causal Samadhi. As I mentioned before, these three Samadhis are vital. These three are actually built into every single practice. Now, many people might not know how to practice them. When reciting a liturgy, first, all phenomena dissolve into emptiness. After that, whether you are visualizing Manjushri or Avalokiteshvara, at that moment from within emptiness, the sun, moon, seed syllable, and so forth appear. For example, in visualizing Manjushri, first, all phenomena dissolve into emptiness. Then from within emptiness, one instantly visualizes a lotus, sun, and moon. On the sun and moon discs, one visualizes Manjushri's seed syllable D. D transforms into a sword, which gradually becomes the form of Manjushri. This is visualization using the 5 actual manifestations of awakening. If your faculties are sharper, you don't need all those steps. When you visualize with a single syllable like Om, Hum, or Di, Manjushri instantly appears before you. If your faculties and your realization of the generation stage are higher still, you don't even need the syllable. You manifest the deity in an instant. Of course, this looks simple on the surface, but it requires a relatively high level of realization and deep mental training. You need to be completely proficient in those 3 samadhis mentioned earlier. Otherwise, if you try to manifest the deity all at once, it will be nothing more than a passing thought. No real image will appear. There are certainly differences in our practice. Whether we're chanting or visualizing, the levels of realization vary significantly from person to person. Some might wonder, why do I need to visualize? Why imagine all this in front of me? We already broke down the logic behind this in the section on the view. The fact is, you and Manjushri are fundamentally inseparable, but ordinary beings just don't recognize this. Since we don't know it, we use this practice as a way to restore that perspective, a method to rediscover the true nature of our own mind. At that point, through the wondrous activity and manifestation of Samadhi, you are truly one with what we call Manjushri. Once you reach that state, your Samadhi cannot be shaken or destroyed by anything. This kind of practice is vital, yet some people are just practicing blindly. They simply think, my guru told me to visualize Manjushri, so I will. But why? Because he said so. What's the teacher's reasoning? Maybe he has a point since he's supposed to be a Buddha. Is the guru really a Buddha? Maybe, but I still have my doubts about him all the time. He doesn't seem like a Buddha. He has such a temper. So at this time, the visualization doesn't hold up, and the idea of the guru being a Buddha fails too. You just end up in a state of internal conflict. This actually happens, doesn't it? It would be better to focus on proper hearing and contemplation. Whether what the guru says is right or not, you should develop your own stable and certain understanding of the secret mantra view. Only after you've truly grasped the view of purity and even does the actual visualization matter. This point is absolutely crucial. Therefore, I truly hope that you will study the previous sections again and again when it is convenient. Regarding the section on the view in the Guhyagarbha Tantra, you might not fully master it after just 1 or 2 listenings. It contains the most profound principles of the secret mantra. One practitioner mentioned yesterday that he had read the words of my perfect teacher 5 times. With each reading, he gained new insights, but also felt like he was getting more and more foolish. I told him that shows you are becoming wiser. A truly foolish person reads it once, thinks there is nothing left to see, and tosses it aside. That is a real fool. I said, you are indeed wise. If you gain new insights every time you read it, it shows you have wisdom. So I believe that, like the words of my perfect teacher, the more you study it, the deeper your understanding will grow. The same goes for the section on the view in the Guhyagarbha Tantra. You have to review it repeatedly. Some practitioners might treat this like a modern professional specialization. You really have to dedicate yourself to it. If you spend 5 years on it, you can become an expert. If you spend 5 years focusing exclusively on reading, studying, and practicing, and really pouring your heart into contemplating this great perfection view, you will eventually realize that everything is pure, just as the secret mantra teaches. So it has always been this way, whether it is my discursive thoughts or the external world. People say afflictions are bodhi. The sixth patriarch only briefly mentioned it in the Platform Sutra, but what does it actually mean? You can only fully realize it through this teaching. If you have such a foundation, then realizing the primordial purity of the great perfection becomes much easier. Of course, if you have no interest in practicing the secret mantra, that's a different story. We won't go into that. For now, you can go your own way on your golden path, and we won't try to stop you. But if you truly wish to enter the hall of the secret mantra, it is vital that you complete the preliminary practices first. Many people nowadays claim that preliminaries are unnecessary, that paying a fee or receiving a blessing is enough. But this contradicts the core instructions of the lineage masters. Great masters like Patrul Rinpoche and Jigme Lingpa completed the preliminary practices over 20 times. If such great beings needed to practice them that many times, then no matter who we think we are, we cannot possibly compare ourselves to masters like Patrul Rinpoche. Therefore, one should not think too highly of oneself. By doing so, you'll end up skipping essential stages of the path. Once you have that solid foundation, you should listen to teachings like the Guhyagarbha Tantra. At first, you probably need to listen to them. Since you've likely never heard them, just reading books won't guarantee you'll get it. I suggest listening to the oral teachings first. After that, you don't need to listen every single day. Then use your own wisdom to realize, so this is the general direction. As the Avatamsaka Sutra says, without a teacher, even the wise cannot understand the Dharma. You might be very smart, a grad student or a PhD with great achievements, but without guidance, you probably won't grasp the meaning. Once you have listened to the teachings, delve into them continuously with your faith and wisdom. Then you will certainly gain a new understanding of this life, and especially of the original face of the mind. At that point, I believe that by coming to Larung or studying secret mantra, you will obtain something truly rare that most people around you never find. Here we're discussing the stage known as meditation instantaneously perfected upon recollection, which belongs to Hatha Yoga. We've already covered the differences between Hatha Yoga and Mahayoga earlier, so those who have just joined us might find this a bit confusing. But if you're lost, there isn't much I can do. I can't spend every day just defining basic terminology for you. Alternatively, in accordance with birth from the womb and miraculous birth, there are two aspects of the generation stage that are taught for the gradual developers and the instantaneous realizers. The gradual generation stage is taught for birth from the womb, while the instantaneous one is taught for miraculous birth. The instantaneous recollection I mentioned can also be divided into two. Furthermore, there are 5 distinctions based on the 5 stages of practice, such as great emptiness and so forth. These belong to the generation stage. These involve the great emptiness, magical compassion, the single mudra, the elaborate mudra, and the accomplishment gathering of group formations. There are 5 stages of practice. So, based on these 5 stages of practice, there are also 5 categories of the generation stage. That is one way to explain it. Furthermore, there are multitudes of distinctions, such as the samadhi of visualizing the meaning of the 4 mudras of enlightened body, speech, and mind, including enlightened deeds. We will discuss this further below. Mudras are divided into those of body, speech, mind, and activity. We will cover these 4 mudras later. Samadhis are also categorized into 4 types based on these mudras. In actuality, whatever is considered part of the stage of generation is referred to as the samadhi of the nature as it is. Strictly speaking, any practice within the secret mantra that involves conceptual or fabricated visualization can be categorized as generation stage practices. Next, we discuss the samadhi of the completion stage. The samadhi of the completion stage includes both the path of method that relies upon the upper and lower gateways, and the path of liberation that includes both the gradual and simultaneous practices of non-conceptual union. As mentioned before, for those with sharp faculties in the secret mantra, there are practices based on the path of methods, such as the practice of descending nectar through the upper gateway. There are also practices involving the lower gateway of the path of methods. Then there is the non-conceptual union, which is the non-duality of appearance and emptiness. These include both gradual and simultaneous yoga practices. These are primarily practices of winds, channels, and essences, as in other texts like finding rest and meditation. We are cautious because many people today might misinterpret these practices. To prevent such misunderstandings, these specific methods are generally kept private, because for many people nowadays, it might be quite difficult to practice the completion stage. Instead, we focus on the practices of the path of liberation. For example, as described in the completion stage of the great perfection of Manjushri, there is a practice that you begin by visualizing yourself as Manjushri, but then you must revisualize that form through a process of transformation. First, you visualize your ordinary physical body, and then imagine it being completely dissolved by the fire of wisdom. Only then do you revisualize yourself as Manjushri. You visualize the 3 channels and 4 wheels within the body. These are called completion stage practices. Actually, in the true great perfection, completion stage practices are not particularly emphasized. However, for some practitioners, winds, channels, and essences are still taught. When the secret mantra first became popular in the 1980s, and throughout the 90s in the Han region, Zhonggong and various other forms of Qigong were emerging. At that time, many people were obsessed with practicing winds, channels, and essences. But today, many in the Han region no longer promote this approach. They all know there's a difference between the completion stage and Qigong. As many people now realize, true Dharma practice begins with the preliminaries. Many practitioners of the Sutrayana also know the importance of renunciation and bodhicitta. So regarding the situation in the Han region, and I am not just praising us, Larunga has certainly made a positive impact in certain areas. Because here we teach the authentic stages of the path. We cover the essential 3 principal aspects of the path from the Sutrayana, and in the secret mantra we also teach how to practice after receiving empowerments, and we emphasize the preliminary practices. This is quite different from the situation in Hong Kong or Taiwan. Although there are many eminent and extraordinary masters there who also teach the Dharma, the environment has become far too lax. In some places, what is being taught isn't the actual generation or completion stage at all. They use all sorts of labels, claiming it's the completion stage of the great perfection, but in reality, it is nothing of the sort. This phenomenon is widespread, especially over there on the internet. Therefore, in this regard, it is sometimes better to be a little more strict. Otherwise, those without a solid view of their own will blindly accept whatever they encounter and practice it for a lifetime, only to realize it wasn't the path to enlightenment. That would be a pity. So that is the completion stage. If you do not understand the completion stage, it is also covered in the 9th chapter of Finding Rest in the Nature of the Mind. As for the specific methods of practice, I have taught them before when explaining His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's The Great Perfection of Manjushri. That was the completion stage. This is how the nature is categorized. According to duration, there are 3: the practice of the blessing, the practice of symbolic indication, and the practice of completion. For the first of these, the indivisibility of space and wisdom is the genuine deity, and the Rupakaya of the symbolic deity arises from that. The non-duality of the Dharma Dhatu and wisdom is the definitive deity. This is the original face of our mind. Through its expressive power, there appear Manjushri with his sword, Avalokiteshvara with his mala, and so on. These are the symbolic deity, the formal Guyagarbha. Visualizing the deity in this way and meditating with the awareness that one's actual nature becomes blessed by the deity's actual nature resembled the transmutation of iron into gold. This is characteristic of the outer tantras, where there are 2 types of deities, the Samaya deity and the wisdom deity. The suchness of the deity blesses the suchness of oneself. Here, the suchness of oneself refers to the practitioner. The relationship between yourself and the deity is like that of a monarch and a subject, or it is like the relationship between brothers. There are several such methods of practice. Through the blessing of the deity, one's state is transformed. Just as an alchemical elixir turns iron into gold, one's original state is transformed. We find this same principle within the Sutrayana as well. In the Sutrayana, one prays to Avalokiteshvara, and the blessing of Avalokiteshvara dissolves into one's mind. Then one's original impurities are transformed into purity. There are many such practices found in Chinese esoteric Buddhism today. Generally speaking, this is how the outer Tantra practices work. In fact, many people today are well suited for this type of practice. You might wonder why there are so few liturgies in the Han region for visualizing oneself as the deity. This is a gradual process. If we truly master the view of the evenness and purity of all things, then there is no reason why we cannot visualize ourselves as the deity. Since we are fundamentally the deity, it is not an issue. But if you have not mastered this, then as long as you have discursive thoughts, you will see the deity as pure and yourself as impure. Thus, the approach of a pure deity blessing the impure self remains valid. Different Dharma doors exist to suit the varied characters of sentient beings. This is the unique quality of Buddha Shakyamuni. He taught different dharmas according to different faculties. There is a common saying in the Tibetan region. Even though it is just a folk saying, it is quite valid. How does it go? Some see a triangle while others see a square. It is actually the same object. But you perceive it as a triangle, and he perceives it as a square, because the karmic forces of sentient beings differ. Their subjective attachment to the external world is truly different. Some find an object beautiful while others find it ugly. Two different values have already formed within their consciousness. This is due to the different karma of beings. Therefore, since the faculties of beings are truly varied, for those with certain faculties, the relationship between a deity and self is defined as that between a superior and a subordinate. We often ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to grant us blessings. That is the first type. Second, the practice of symbolic indication. Just as gold is melted and then cast into a Buddha statue, the essence of that statue remains pure gold throughout the process. Similarly, the Rupakaya is generated through pure bodhicitta. When we look within our own minds, even though we are visualizing Manjushri, this pure being doesn't suddenly arrive from somewhere else. He arises from our own mind. These analogies are very important. I hope you study these analogies of Mipham Rinpoche carefully. Do not just skim through them. That is not the way to learn. Think deeply about each analogy. It starts as raw gold and is then cast into a Buddha statue. Where did the statue come from? It came from the gold itself. Following the practices of Mahayoga and the inner tantras, when we visualize ourselves as a deity, that deity emerges from our inherently pure mind, our awareness, and our bodhicitta. Keep in mind that this bodhicitta isn't the relative version taught in Sutrayana. It refers to our Rigpa awareness. In this context, our fundamental mind is termed bodhicitta. Having understood this, one meditates in a proficient and capable manner. One practices through this method. This was the second type of practice. Third, the practice of completion. Just as a reflection appears effortlessly on clear water, when a reflection suddenly appears on the surface of clear water, it requires absolutely no effort, unlike casting a Buddha image, which takes a long time. It is not like that. The moment the reflection appears, the image is fully manifest on the pure water. The yogi who realizes the natural purity has the samadhi of instantaneous perfection. This belongs to the great perfection. When one truly recognizes the awareness of the mind, one recognizes it instantly. Our mind, which is the non-duality of appearance and emptiness, is inseparable from Manjushri. When we truly master the states of the great perfection, as we discussed during the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, it is easy to understand. In the Zen tradition, the point is also to recognize the nature of one's mind. It can be realized in a single instant. But this is only for those of the highest faculties. Not everyone is necessarily ready to reach such a state immediately. Therefore, this is considered the most supreme form of practice. The entirety of mantra is subsumed within these three. Not only that, it also states in Vairochana's magical manifestation matrix that even the schools of the vehicle of characteristics, the hearers, mind only, and middle way, are likewise subsumed. The first type of practice I mentioned already encompasses and even transcends the methods of the Shravaka vehicle. While Shravakas do visualize the Buddha, their practice lacks this level of extraordinary depth. The second type covers the mind-only school, which holds that all things are mind. Yet, it doesn't go as far as transforming the form of bodhicitta into the actual form of a deity. The actual luminosity aspect is not practiced there as it is in the secret mantra. The third type involves visualizing one's own mind in a single instant. This is like a reflection appearing on clear water. Here, emptiness and luminosity are non-dual. Longchenpa mentioned that the non-duality of appearance and emptiness is like a moon in water. This is the true absolute truth. This is actually the definitive Manjushri, the most definitive Avalokiteshvara. This is simply the nature of one's own mind, where appearance and emptiness are one. This is what we usually call the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. Truly recognizing the nature is to recognize that the Guru is inseparable from the luminosity of one's mind. This is the ultimate realization. Thus, it even transcends the standard practices of the middle way. Next, let's discuss the specific details of the practice itself. Let's look at the section on the manner of accomplishment. Third, the manner of accomplishing samadhi is the same as found in the sutras, except for the way in which all aspects of tranquil stillness are easily and profoundly accomplished in conjunction with the special methods of mantra. However, the secret mantra possesses a very unique and skillful method. While the general state of tranquil stillness, shamatha, is much the same, it has its own profound meditative techniques for recognizing the nature of mind. There are indeed differences between the meditations of mantra and sutra. Nowadays, many monks and entrepreneurs in the Han region give speeches every day on topics like how Zen leads to a happy life or Zen and corporate culture. Sometimes in those circles, I just go along and act like a local Han monk, adopting these grand, generic titles like Zen and corporate. And there are some other teachers of Tibetan Buddhism who give talks on Zen and the six paramitas and similar topics. However, these talks do not address the unique aspects of the secret mantra. In the secret mantra, recognizing its meditative essence means recognizing the nature of mind right then and there. Furthermore, it possesses a particularly sublime power, so its significance is truly profound. Also, the mantra part directly involves some pith instructions that will be discussed later during actual practice. This makes it easier to achieve accomplishment compared to the Sutrayana. Aside from these distinctions, the fundamental methods are quite similar. Next, we will discuss eliminating the 5 faults, relying on the 8 recognitions and the 9 methods of placement. These are taught in both sutra and mantra, including within the Great Perfection. So there is no difference in the way they are practiced. Are the meditations of sutra and mantra the same? We can say that in their manner of practice, they are the same. In fact, those of you studying the secret mantra should understand these points. Otherwise, you won't understand any of the principles of the mantra path. You might spend 9 years in the Tibetan region eating tsampa and then just return, but that wouldn't be truly studying Tibetan Buddhism. Whatever the case, it is necessary to gain stability through a functional mind and then proceed to gradually develop. Whether in the sutra or mantra path, one must begin by, for example, developing renunciation, bodhicitta, and non-dual wisdom as taught in the sutras. These are also taught in the secret mantra. The mantra path teaches samadhi, just as the sutra path teaches Zen. The method is the same. You must make your mind obedient and functional. Without a functional mind, you cannot practice. The mind must be functional. This is how it is explained. The actual method of practice is as follows. By relying upon the 8 recognitions that eliminate the 5 faults and the 6 strengths, one gradually becomes familiar with the 4 modes of attentiveness concurrent with the 9 methods of placement. This is the entire process. If we don't want to practice visualization in our daily lives, there's nothing that can be done. But if you truly want to practice, this method is exceptionally sublime. The 5 experiences in concentration progressively develop, and the tranquil stillness of a thoroughly trained mind is achieved. Finally, the tranquil stillness of a truly functional mind will easily arise. So these are the different stages of the process. You should pay close attention to them. Regarding that, the 5 faults that prevent concentration, when practicing meditation, many people say, I can't go on. Many ask, why can't my mind settle down? It's because you haven't found the key point. Why can't the mind settle? There are 5 reasons. What are they? Laziness, forgetting the instructions, elation and lethargy, failure to apply the antidote, and the overuse of the antidote when elation and lethargy have been pacified. These are the 5. First is laziness, which is a major obstacle to the path. Some might want to practice and do the preliminaries at the beginning. We see this with those practicing the 5 preliminaries as well. They start prostrating and practicing with great energy for 2 or 3 days, but in the end, they fail to persist. This comes from laziness. Some tell me they'll be extremely busy for the next 5 years, but you aren't necessarily that busy. Sometimes being busy is just an excuse. It's more likely due to heavy karmic obstacles from past lives. In any case, it is related to laziness. Laziness is indeed a massive obstacle to our practice. Some people just sleep late into the day every single morning. Sakya Pandita said humans sleep for half their lives. For some, it might be 2/3 of their time. If so, their full-time job in this world is simply sleeping. Laziness is the first obstacle. The second is forgetting the instructions. You've heard the guru's instructions on meditation before, but when it's time to actually use them, you forget them completely. If you forget the pith instructions, you cannot practice. Forgetting the instructions is the second fault. The third occurs during practice. The mind either sinks into lethargy, stuck in a daze, feeling exhausted and extremely sleepy, or it experiences agitation, scattering outward in endless distraction. You sit there, seemingly in the perfect 7-point posture of Vairochana, which looks great, but your mind is wandering through the billion-fold universe. You are constantly engaged in all sorts of illusory events. That is elation and lethargy. The fourth fault is the failure to apply antidotes. Unreasonable discursive thoughts will inevitably arise during practice. At that point, if you never apply an antidote and just give up, letting elation and lethargy take over, that is a fault. The fifth is over-applying antidotes when elation and lethargy have been pacified. Some people push themselves relentlessly, thinking, I must succeed. I must master this. They become extremely anxious, and in the end, some even lose their minds. There's no helping it. Because indeed, when the methods used in spiritual practice are incorrect, it is quite common for people to become a bit odd. Nowadays, there are certain individuals who avoid meeting people, locking themselves away in retreat all day long. When they finally emerge from retreat and meet people, their eyes are completely bloodshot. Others are afraid to speak to them. The moment you interact, they seem a bit, well, this is one kind of fault. You might be very anxious, thinking, I must retreat. I must practice successfully. I must not allow a single discursive thought. Pushing yourself desperately. In the end, the entire state of your mind becomes completely disordered. This is the fault of applying the antidote when it is not needed. It is very harmful. Regarding these faults, laziness and forgetting the instructions impede the ability to engage with samadhi, because if you are lazy, you won't even enter samadhi. You lack the will. If you lack the instructions, you have no way to practice. You won't know how. Therefore, one will either fail to enter samadhi or not know how to practice. Elation and lethargy impedes the actual practice because during the process of practice you either fall asleep, some often end up snoring while practicing just like that, or eventually you simply cannot continue. There was once a practitioner who intended to retreat for 3 years. He even wrote 3-year retreat on his door. He vowed, if during these 3 years I give rise to even a moment of discursive thought, may the Dharma protectors punish me most severely. Then it is said that after only 3 days, his retreat sign was still standing there, but he was already gone. Due to such elation, his mind was instantly distracted and he left. This is how elation obstructs the main practice. Failure to apply the antidote and applying the antidote when elation and lethargy have subsided obstruct the increase of samadhi. You pay no attention to these faults at all. Every single day of your practice goes by like this. Or on the other hand, you apply the antidotes with excessive force. Neither of these approaches will lead to any progress. So if you truly have no desire to practice, there is nothing to be done. But if you do wish to practice, especially meditation, this is currently receiving a great deal of attention in various universities. Many people now believe that meditation is the best way to find happiness and reduce stress. Since you intend to meditate, you must follow a proper method. Without a method, your practice truly will not succeed. Well, let's stop here for today. Saying will not succeed sounds a bit negative, doesn't it? Let's say your practice will be successful. If you practice correctly and in accordance with the Dharma, you will succeed. Otherwise, ending the first lesson by saying practice will not succeed would be inauspicious.
Bandhangara Badna Sodargye Bandhangara Badna Sodargye Bandhangara Badna Sodargye